My name is Mark Burrows, and I edit poetry for Wildhouse Publishing, a relatively new press in Boston, a press devoted to what our marketing department calls adventurous spirituality. And certainly, this is a book full of an adventurous spirit. And Donna, so we're so pleased that you brought this work to us. We're delighted that we're able to bring this out to the world of readers. And it's a book that is so timely, as all of you who know Donna's work and have glimpsed at least parts of this book will know. A book that brings a voice into a very difficult time, into a very difficult space in our lives in the world at this point, and a book that seeks to help us understand how we can be responsible, authentic, and true to our faith, to our world, and its diverse struggles and peoples in struggle at this time. I'm delighted that Jared and Joshua are joining us tonight. Julia Kolchinsky was to have been with us, but is suffering from an illness and had to send her regrets at the last minute. So we wish her healing blessings. Donna, it's been such a delight to get to know you over the last 8 months or so since you first contacted us. Actually, one of our editors, one of our editorial team, Laura Hogan, knows you and knows your work and suggested it would be a good fit. It was immediately clear to me that she was so right. And over the last month, 6 months, particularly working with you has been such a privilege. Donna, for most of you will know Donna. For those who may not know her well, Donna is a bicultural, bilingual, by many things, I think, a person who spent a good part of her life in the Netherlands, where she met and married Gershom, whose artwork, the late Gershom, her husband who died last fall, tragically, sadly. His artwork is in the book at the beginning and end, his sketches. And they shared a passion for the study of psychology and the implications of psychology for human life and human flourishing. His work eventually moved into the art field, where he spent much of his energy working on perception, on human perception, and how to understand perception, not simply from a psychological vantage point, but from an artistic vantage point. Donna is a retired professor of psychology at USC. And I love the little bit that you gave us here that she is a McDowell Fellow, marvelous, rabbinical school dropout, interesting, and former classical flutist. So quite an array of passions, Donna, that you bring. These poems that we're going to explore tonight are a haunting voicing of what it is to try to be faithful to the Holy One who is among all of us in all the names we can find. You mentioned in your afterword how difficult it was for you to find any way of addressing the Holy One. And so you simply use the second person, you. And we'll hear more about the you as you unfold these poems with us. So without further ado, a few words from you, Donna, about the book, about how it came about, and then we'll turn to Jared and Joshua. Welcome, Donna.
Thank you, and thank you for your kind words, Mark. Here it is. Ain't she pretty? Thank you, Melody, who designed the cover. I was so scared, really, because I'm used to having my husband do my covers, but he wasn't here to do it. And Melody at Wildhouse Press just did an amazing job. Mark, you're an amazing editor, and it's a privilege to be part of the Wildhouse family. Mm. Being a wild person, it kind of works. This book started on October 7th. And actually, the first poem was written before I'd heard the news, because I didn't used to get up in the morning and turn the news on. I got up in the morning and read and wrote and did other things, but I didn't listen to the news. And what happened was, I guess Carolyn Forche would call this a cryologue. I got that word from her. It's just, I wrote every day about the war. And at some point, at day 155, I had to stop because I felt so silenced by the media. I felt like my voice was not welcome in a lot of places. And I wasn't being honest anymore to the page or to myself. And I had to stop. And the only way that I could stop myself, because the people who know me well know that I'm kind of like I barrel along, was to put the decent poems into a bundle and I sent it to my two friends, to Laura and Nan, so that I could just get myself to stop and think. And Laura sent it to Mark. So for any of you who have felt silenced by the media, by people around you, this is a kind of a diary of me feeling that, beginning to feel that.
Mm, thank you so much. Thank you so much, Donna. The poignance of these poems is what stirred me immediately when I read them. And there's something about the voice that you bring, even though I had never met you, I'd never heard your voice, but I felt it on the page in a way that rarely happens to me in reading a volume of poems. Partly because I think it's a consistent voice woven through these poems. I felt reading them immediately, your passion, your grief, your anger, your frustration, and your silence. And many of the poems begin and end with silence and are full of the kind of silence that in times of anguish, in times of great human suffering, on all sides of a situation as atrocious as what's happening in Israel, Palestine, Israel, Gaza, Israel, West Bank, Israel, Lebanon, that silence is a language of its own, and you help us engage that language for ourselves. And that's an immense gift and an immense invitation, I think, to us. So we have a feast tonight, and we'll turn first to Jared Harrell to lead us off to read several poems and reflect upon them. Jared is the author of a number of books, Go Because I Love You, The Body Double, and most recently, Let Our Bodies Change the Subject. Writing about himself, he says, well, I teach writing, I play drums, and I live in Westchester, New York. The drums part is intriguing, and I'm sure I would find that in the rhythm of your poems on the page, and I'm sure we'll hear that tonight. So, Jared, thank you so much for joining us, and a warm welcome to you.
Thanks, Mark. It's a pleasure to be here. Congrats, Donna, Mazel Tov. Pleasure to be here with all of you. Yeah, no, I'm a drummer, and I kind of like the balance, actually, of, writing can sometimes be this very solitary creative art, and for me, drumming is a very social one, a communal one. And yes, there's the overlap of rhythm, but really, I like the differences of them. Um, but yeah, congratulations. It's a beautiful book. I'm really grateful to hold it in my hand. If you haven't yet purchased your copy, please do so. Support the press, support Donna, support this work. Um, yeah, I'm honored to be here for the launch of Donna's poetry collection, To Phrase a Prayer for Peace. It's a prayer that's becoming more urgent and more dire with every day. As I said in my book blurb, this is exactly the kind of book I wish to see in the world during these dark and divisive days. When Donna asked me to blurb it, and I started reading it, I said, "Oh, absolutely! This is the book I want to see in the world." And Donna's just the right person to write it. Um, these poems write into fear and against fear and silence and faith and doubt. And they're very tightly woven, as you'll hear. But they're also so large-spirited and generous, open to all, non-judgmental of so many. And there's this phrase, specificity is universal. And I think in this case that often that can be very true. Um, the specificity of this particular voice, I think, has the ability to connect and open out to so many. Um, with some books, I take great care in distinguishing between the author and the speaker of the poems. I find that this is a book that doesn't need that. The author is the speaker, powerfully so. Um, this collection to my ear is Donna's voice and heart amplified and crystallized. And that's kind of a joy to sit with. And I think Mark touched on that, the consistency of voice throughout, and that it was kind of written in a condensed and specified time period. Also, speaking for myself, when the world is this kind of scary, chaotic, disorienting place, I think poetry can really be a balm. Something sometimes the only thing I feel that can be made just right. You kind of tinker with the words and the phrases and the line breaks until they click right into place. Um, and I think to phrase a prayer for peace, it's in the title itself. It's a poetry collection that understands the difficulty of language, of making language and words just right, how to phrase, how to rephrase, how to revise, how to get it just so. And so while the world is a colossal mess, so many of these poems feel just right. And they do feel like these moments that click right into place. And so I'm gonna read three of them. I'll try my best to do them justice. Um, and then I'm excited to hear Donna and Yeshua read as well. So I'm gonna start at the very beginning. This is the opening poem, Hoof, on page 5, for those of you who have the collection. It's after Psalm 89, lines 26 to 35. Is it that I have had a richness of choices? Have I gazelled sideways from one river stone to the next? Or has this been a series of false starts, the hoof withdrawn at the slightest snow? January's wolf moon calls her pups into the night, marks their necessary kill. We all need to eat. Even in snow, hoof paused over the water. My heart says, trust. My tracks say, doubt. I love the sort of tentpoles of trust and doubt. And I think poetry and faith both exist between those tentpoles of trust and doubt. I'm gonna move forward to page 12. I think this is the poem that Donna was referring to, this first poem that was written the day of October 7th, but before the news was heard. And the poem's called Darkness Myth for Day One of the Israel-Hamas War, before I heard the news for R. I'm a night rider, and no matter how hard I try to bend myself into daylight, I long for the dark. But what do I know of darkness? My version of darkness is full of candlelight. And this is a poem that I've thought of many times. Sometimes these short poems kind of just stay in your head. My version of darkness is full of candlelight. It's such a beautiful, haunting phrase. And I think those themes of light and dark and darkness in the light is it's really touching and it's true to the moment, and it sticks with me. Also, I'm someone who writes during the day, and so someone who writes right at night, it's a different world, for sure. So I was drawn to this poem immediately. And the last one I'm going to read is all the way at the end of the book, getting you to flip some pages. This is the first poem in the postlude. It isn't over. And it's a poem called Swarm, after Psalm 119, verses 1, 2. Swarm. My heart risks it all, says generous, but my mind is wily, unkind. These war days drag me down, seaweed and precarious seas. Disoriented, the sea's floor lost to me for holdfast. No latch and tug, can't drag myself up to the shoreline, salty and dripping and sure that this time that I found your way, as if it were up for interpretation. But I do, you know, I interpret furiously. And now, scraping down through the fury, cruelty, at the bottom of it all, at the lowest point, my ears hear your whisper. The whole heart will find me. Thank you.
Thank you, Jared. And I think it's just so powerful that the three poems you chose have no final punctuation, any of them. The first ends without any punctuation, right? It ends with the word doubt. And there it is. The rest of the page is blank. And the second and third you chose end with an M dash, as if to invite, to signal that this is not finished. This cannot be finished. That there is something that has to come. And you welcomed us into the energy of these poems in a way that really lifted that up. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Next up is Joshua November, coming to us from New Jersey, where he teaches creative writing at Rutgers and has a number of books. Most recently, a book with a marvelous title, apropos the candlelight in the darkness. The title is The Concealment of Endless Light. That's a book I'll buy just for the title, Joshua. So you nailed
Thank
it.
you. All right, that's good.
His
That was
other
the
books,
purpose.
God's Optimism and The Two Worlds Exist. So Joshua, thank you for joining us, and we look forward to your reading and comments on Donna's poems.
Okay, thanks so much. Thank you, Mark. Thank you, Jared. And of course, thank you, Donna, for the honor of allowing me to be part of this book launch celebration. I think, like Donna herself, this book is large-hearted enough to simultaneously mourn many nations' losses and many forms of loss. For example, in the poem on day 84, it's between witchcraft and reading the news. The speaker laments her beloveds in Ukraine, Israel, and Gaza, and at the same time for her beloved with perfect blonde eyes, who, although seemingly outside of a literal war zone, finds herself figuratively under fire as her marriage unravels. How refreshing in our polarized world to encounter a poet whose mind is wise enough and whose heart is tender enough to compose a book that balances paradoxes. Throughout this collection fuses opposites. One recurring example concerns the conflation of the public newsreel and the private moment. Another concerns the pairing of physical and emotional pain, or the yoking of the human and the divine. Yet another paradox is embodied in the speaker's plea for the wherewithal to pray, which is a kind of prayer itself. Similarly, the speaker's sense of profound inadequacy in the presence of the divine is precisely what grants her access to divinity. Many of these paradoxical modes are poignantly represented in the poem A Prayer for the Ability to Pray, which I'm honored to read. So this poem is on page 7, A Prayer for the Ability to Pray, and it's after Psalm 109, verses 11 through 16. I broke my left hip the first time our daughter left home. It was decades ago. One pain camouflaged the other. Even though I'm standing at the threshold of your cathedral, I can't navigate my own cargo. How is it that I always think tomorrow will finally be rain-slicked and fresh? Everything gliding out from under me, mud under bad shoes. As if I am not broken at the thought of her leaving again. I turn away, focus on the other pains, the ones of the body. I am before you continually, but not listening, not seeing, not lifting, practicing some kind of mercy, rehearsing for my own reckoning, geography and time, miserable constructs. And now I have fractured my right hip on the eve of her next departure, my own kind of God wrestling. And so she will go, and I only have 2 hips to give. I stand continually before you, but I'm not listening. I am dangerous. I am not ready, my Lord. Yes, I thought that was a really wonderful poem. It reminded me of another line from the Psalms. I think it's from the Psalms, which in the Jewish prayer, it's a kind of like a short utterance that said before the silent prayer, which is kind of like the culmination of the prayer. And there's a short verse that said right before the silent prayer, which is in Hebrew, it's called Hashem Sifasai Tiftach Ufi Yagid Hilasecha. God, open my mouth, and my lips will utter your prayer. And it's as if the worshiper is kind of saying that God speaks through them at that moment, that God opens their lips. And it's kind of a duality, because on the one hand, it's the highest point of prayer, and the person's kind of worked themselves up to that stage, so they're ready. In that way, but also it's as if to say that we're never really ready, and we hope that something deeper than ourselves will speak through us. And I think that's definitely embodied in this collection. A line in the final stanza of this collection reads, "In darkness I reach out," which is not to say that I don't reach out in the daylight, but isn't it the dimming of days that lengthens our reach? So that's a line from the final stanza of the book, actually. In the final Hasidic discourse he edited and distributed, the Lubavitcher Rebbe focuses on the mitzvah, the command to light the menorah in the temple in Jerusalem. As the Rebbe notes, the biblical verse instructs that a menorah be lit from evening until morning. The Hebrew is me'erev ad boker. Indeed, the Rebbe underscores, evening and morning, dark and light, are not the same. And often it's in the darkness that we find ourselves closest to or reaching for the divine. Similarly, the Rebbe points out, in describing the process of producing the oil to be used to kindle the menorah, the verse states that the olive should be crushed for the source of light. In the Hebrew, the word is kasis lama, or crushed for the illumination. In the Hasidic reading, this implies that often in moments of persecution, of crushing, moments of darkness, one's essential Jewish spark, known in Yiddish as the Der Pintel HaYid, finally rises to the surface, and one feels acutely connected to Jewish history, Jewish identity, and a sense of Jewish community. In the wake of October 7th, many have described feeling this sensation. The poem Day 3 of the War, Unknown, does well to capture this sentiment of a collective Jewish consciousness. So the poem is on page 14. It's called Day 3 of the War, Unknown. Monday, October 9th, 2023, 7:37 p.m. I'm still alive, but terrified. My daughter has gone militant, but death is everywhere, and I am not militant. I am heartbroken. Walking the dogs tonight, I met a woman. She saw my Magen David and needed to talk. We sobbed into one another's unknown. Thanks so much for the opportunity to be a part of this, and hopefully, we will see the prayer for peace will be answered.
Oh, thank you so much, Joshua. I'm reminded of that line, the opening line of one of Theodore Roethke's poems. In a dark time, the eye, EYE, the eye begins to see. And of course, when you hear that, the I is the I, it's the I, and the EYE, that the darkness is a place where we learn to see differently in our doubt, in our struggle, in our fear, and in our trust, in learning to, as you put it, Donna, in the poem, to practice mercy, to try to practice mercy. Well, thank you. Thank you, Joshua, for a beautiful reflection on these poems. And Donna, it's over to you now to share some of the poems and tell us more about them.
Thank you, Joshua, and thank you, Jared. What an honor. You honor me. You also kind of make me cry, so I'm going to see if I can get through this now. I wanted to make a comment on the first poem that Jared read, Darkness Myth for day one. It's dedicated to R. It's for R. And R comes back a number of times in the book. R is my friend, a poet. He was the victim of me sending him these poems every day. And he's also blind, and that therefore the whole idea of darkness is so different for both of us. So I'm going to move to day 4 of the war. And it's on page 15. A couple of things you need to know about this poem is that there's a line in it from Adília Prado, as a Brazilian poet who I just love. And I will tell you where the stolen line is when it comes. And it's based on one of my rabbi's teachings. Okay. Day 4 of the war, hashtag we are toast, day 11. It's 7:57 p.m. PST, October 10th, 2023, and I have lived through this day. I weep from room to room. It is taught that prayers said in community are multicolored, while individual prayers are monochrome. We tinker. We are haphazard technicians. God is what we need, and fast. All God's welcome. I realize I've got the wrong glasses on. Day 14 is a poem for R again, because R had suddenly ghosted me. And I was thinking, oh, he's probably sick of getting these poems, but so. Day 14. Hello, silent one. Are my war poems making you uncomfortable? It's only anguish. My power is of the small variety, the power of a knockoff crystal. Yet I can't stop them coming. The sun, tempered today by breeze, me fed and free in a country where others are not. My child not gone to war, and the war hasn't come to her, not yet. But oh my Lord, all the children, all of them, all of them. Day 31. Day 31 is a poem about how important it is to speak out, and how hard it is, and how much I didn't want to. Day 31, speak. And now, can I stop with this? Even though breath has become a privilege, in the margins of my innocence, I scribble, let there be peace. No stopping it, girl, old girl, woman, cowering. Speak. You only have everything to lose. This next poem is after Psalm 116, verses 5 through 8. And this is where you comes in. And I wanted to tell you a little bit more. It's the U in my book is capital Y-O-U, 3 capital letters, U. And that is because all the various names we have for what is holy, or the Shekhinah, or God, or however you want to say it. It's all encapsulates some characteristic of the deity, but not everything. And it's also third person, so it's distant. And I wanted to talk to the whole package, and I wanted to talk face to face. So that's where the you comes in. And now you know who that is. And this one's after Psalm 116, verses 5 through 8. On day 34, I ask you to teach us again. Ancient concepts, nurture, compassion, justice. Teach us again. We are perpetrators of the unforgivable. We forget. Yet even standing in this rubble, you invite us to return to peace. You say, return. You say, tears. You say, stumble. And we do. We stumble. Okay, things by day 39 were getting grim in my head, and every once in a while I had to have a little fun. So in day 30, in this poem, it's a little fun. Okay, fun and war. Love poem for day 39. Oh, and sorry. And in this poem, I refer to two other poems. One is End of Poetry by Ada Limon, and the other is You Are Who I Love by Araceli Germay. Okay, love poem for day 39. What I want tonight is only a small thing. I want to write that poem about enough, the one that says enough of the brutal, or the one that starts with you selling roses, or to lie on a white damask Victorian couch, my hair coiffed elaborately, my ardent breasts draped in an amber satin dress, one elegant hand thrown across my brow, a shoe having just fallen from my delicate foot. But I don't have delicate feet, and those poems have already been written, and I can't find the courage tonight to love. A very short one. Day 75. I step away to lick wounds. If a poem is a tattoo, I am inked and scarred by these words. At some point, dear friends of ours from the Netherlands came to visit. And although I had experienced many times of not being able to talk to even some of my best friends, everybody had an opinion about the Israel-Palestine, Israel-Hamas war. Opinions were different. People were very insistent on their own opinions, and the discussions were just almost impossible to have. And then my friends came from Holland, and I mean, I've known those people for a long time, and we couldn't have the discussion. And it was really confronting. So this is about that. Day 82, I want. I'm spending money at our overstocked market, making a grand dinner for our guests. And yet, we can't talk about the war. Israeli soldiers dying because never again. And they aren't wrong, but Gazans starving, needing the basics of life, like water. I need a poem driven by the unbearable dailiness of this time. And why can't I ask, what do you mean? Instead of wedging my own hot and sticky and urgent opinion into it. Why can't you? Very close to the beginning of this war, when we thought it was going to last for 2 weeks, I noticed that I had been in readings with many Jewish poets, and in readings with Palestinian poets, some of which are my friends, and I thought, we're not speaking to one another. And maybe the best thing to do is to try and put an anthology together with the poems next to one another. Had a publisher, we had an editorial board. Some of our editorial board members are here, thank you. And we just couldn't pull it off. Different factions wanted different political statements. This was just supposed to be art and art. And we had to give it up. We had to put it down for now. But I made a couple of new friends, and this is for one of them. Psalm for day 90, after Psalm 118, verses 8 through 12. I have a new friend. She tells me her truths. They slice through my own. They swirl together, make a kaleidoscope of truths, all of them turning unfamiliar. No refuge in common experience. All that we have is this shattered and shared humanity, or what's left of it. We are surrounded, enclosed more than we know. We all call on our gods as if there were different ones. But what's coming in this fire of thorns will take no sides. I have 3 more to go. And Mark, I can pick more if you'd like. This is Roy R. surfaces once again in this poem. This is a discussion we had online. It was funny. Day 95. My friend summarizes my days. You get up every morning, dress in blacks and grays, and write poetry about the war. That's all. Okay. Oh, okay, this poem, I just had to read it because otherwise this whole reading gets so dire. This was me having a bit of fun. Day 107 of war in the Holy Lands, heart wants. I'm telling myself it's okay to start a new notebook. Nothing magic about it. Heart goes, no, new notebook equals magic for sure. Means whole new notebook of war. Gotta wait for peace. But truth about it is that my notebook is full, and I've regressed to envelopes, mailer scraps, receipts, i.e. chaos. Matching outfits, me and the world, twins in gaudy dresses. Not a great look. Heart wants music. Heart wants Wagner's 4 minutes of E-flat major. Epic. Damn anti-Semite. Genius musician. Heart wants the wood and linen of the fine concert hall. Heart wants space for all the people. Heart wants to make heart deals across acrimony. Heart wants everyone to be powerless so that they know. Heart wants a new notebook. And this is the last poem that I'm planning on reading, but I can always read more. This is the title poem for the collection. In a preface, the Torah, the Bible, and the Psalms in particular teach about the importance of words, how important it is to choose the right words. And this can sometimes make prayer terrifying for me, even though I'm prone to it. So this is yet another poem after the Psalms. I've been studying the Psalms for about a decade with 5 other women, and they're all mentioned in the book. And it's been amazing, an amazing journey, and it's sort of changed how I look at things. So this is day 118, the proper way to phrase a prayer for peace, after Psalm 118, verses 25 through 29. What if I ask for the wrong thing? My words are imprecise. and you tend towards the literal. I'm listening to the noise that the hours make, waiting for my heart to soften, waiting for the ribbons that bind me to loosen. And then I might know what to ask and how to ask for it. Thank you.
Oh, goodness, Donna. Thank you. Thank you for this beautiful reading. And I would like to ask you to read one more poem. Joshua mentioned it. He read the last line from the very last stanza. But I'd like you to read the whole the final poem of the book. Crow comes back after Psalm 104, verses 20 to 24.
I'd like to. Crow comes back. You and I, we have cycled through the days and years and seasons I can't name. And I don't know what pulls us together or what pulls us apart. The sun rises, the sun sets, and one day I will lie with you, and I am not ready, Selah. Blessed is the darkness, how I need it. I light the candles to entice my animals to emerge, and sometimes shy, camouflaged, feathered, crowned in ferns and thistles, flammable, bright-eyed, wily, they come. Sometimes they nuzzle, sometimes they nip. I still have work to do, and I want to talk about the moon, but I'll admit I'm no good at writing about her cycles. We are too close, her light, my darkness, and really all of it is yours. In darkness, I reach out, which is not to say that I don't reach out in daylight, but isn't it the dimming of the days that lengthens our reach? Isn't it the blurring that brings, finally, focus?
Oh, beautiful. Thank you. Thank you, Donna. We'll have a few minutes for folks to ask a question. Before we do that, I'd just like to say a few final words of my own gratitude for this book and for you, for your voice in these times, Donna. And I'll do that by highlighting two phrases that you use that capture so much of the intensities and integrity of this collection and of you. One is a line from a poem you just read, Psalm for Day 90. All that we have is this shattered and shared humanity. All that we have is this shattered and shared humanity. And as I read that now, a couple of months into a new administration, or should we say regime, the shared humanity has never been as important and fragile and endangered in our own country as in Israel, Palestine, and so many places in the world. And what these poems do, what you help us to do, is to believe in our shared humanity across the violences of our ideologies, our theologies, our divinities, whatever constructions that we bring to try to salvage some sense of our wholeness, that it is a shattered but shared humanity that we long to hold. And finally, from another poem that I think you did read from as well, I need a poem driven by the unbearable dailiness of this time. The unbearable dailiness of this time. And just one question, and we'll turn it over to others. Because Phil Matris, in his beautiful endorsement of your book, made an observation that really struck me when I read it and made sense to me of something I felt, but couldn't quite put into words myself. He writes about your use of you, that you, capital Y, capital O, capital U, which is throughout this book. That you, of course, is not just God, but all of us. Witness, she writes, speak light. And then he goes on, we need more poems like this with their unhardened hearts in this awful dark. When you read that, Phil's reflection on your writing, what happened to you? Did it
I
make sense to
cried.
you?
I totally cried.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, we've known one another for a while, for quite a while. And I've reviewed, I think, both of his recent books. So, and we differ in many opinions right now. So I just, it really made me cry. I'm just really grateful for it. Also, I
And
cried.
I think what he feels in that comment too is that when we address each other as you and not in the third person, and then when we take away our own first person, we find a commonality that has nothing to do with what differs between us and everything to do with what binds us. So thank you. We have another 10 minutes, and for those of you, some of you may have the book, but if not, I would welcome your responses, reflections on what you've heard tonight, today, wherever you are. And the easiest way to do that is for you to use the little under the, where is it? Where you can raise your hand. Oh, I'm losing it on my
I
screen
think
here.
it's
Oh, and
under
React.
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 Yes.
Yeah, so if you look at the React, you can raise your hand, and then you'll come right up into the center of the screen. Otherwise, there's so many on that we won't see you. So let me invite you to either respond to Donna or to the poems, to say a word of thanks. It's open to all of you. So many wonderful comments along the way as you were reading your poems.
We have
There we
Tree
go.
Smith.
Tree Smith. Tree?
Hello. Sorry for keeping the camera off. I
All right.
just wanted to thank Donna. Her poems are a balm after all that we have experienced since October 7th. The just incredible pain and the suffering that we've witnessed. And Donna's poetry is truly a balm for all of that. And I appreciate it greatly. Thank you.
Thank you, Tree. Thank you. Robin? Unmute. Can you unmute? There we
Sorry.
go. You're live.
Donna, it's beautiful. Congratulations. Just it's really it's something we all need to, I think we all benefit by spending time with those poems. And my question, I know that they must have been so difficult to write even without the polarization and without the pressure of worrying about how other people are going to be respond. And I'm just wondering how you dealt with that and how that affected your, I don't know if I should say your process, but just how you dealt with that. Because I've tried to write a little on the war and, I just can't. But you've done it so gracefully and beautifully.
Thank you. I kind of didn't have a choice. I just, otherwise I can't come downstairs, that. So I actually couldn't not. There's several times in the course of the writing this that I was trying to talk myself out of it, and it's the only way I know what I'm thinking is if I read about it. And so it was kind of like I mean, I became an avid news listener. I'd get up in the morning and I'd peruse all the different sources because I don't trust only the American media, and just sort of take it from there. So I wish I could say this is what I did, but I really had not a lot of control over the process.
Mm.
I guess my question too is how the outside voices affected you.
Oh, well, it made me feel at first sort of stunned. I mean, what now? And I mean, I was very stunned at the various reactions on October 8th that were so vehemently against Israel. And although, by now there's been shenanigans and we're all worried about everyone, that shocked me. And then the polarization within my friends shocked me. And then so first it was shocking, and then it became unnerving. And finally it just became really confusing because I don't, what I love about my daughter is that she's incredibly articulate. She can really voice her opinions. She is a doctor, so she always knows her opinions. She's probably listening to this. Sorry, love. But I'm not like that. I'm not sure of much in this life. I'm just not sure. So I hope that's a good answer.
It is. Thank you.
Mm. Thank you. Thank you, Robin. Dick.
I just wanted to respond to a couple things I heard you say, Donna. The first one was I didn't have a choice, which is that's, I think, what made these poems so urgent, is you weren't choosing to write them. They were choosing to be written. And the other thing that makes them good poetry is they were all there's those hearts on your screen. They were all evinced a process of not a process, discovery. They were all they were not poems that started off with you having something to say. They were poems that came into being as you discovered what they had to say. And that's what I think is causing all of this positive response to that is that the integrity of that poet's voice.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Dick. Final question, I think, is David or comment, David Abenbach.
Donna, thank you so much for tonight. This is lovely. And I think one of the things that's really powerful about these poems is how in the moment you were as you were writing them and how much you were willing to inhabit the feelings and the complexities of those moments. So my question is, what is it like for you now to be pulled back into those moments as the book comes out and reading from those places that, of course, were particularly hard, you know, question mark.
David, that's such a good question. Because Wild House Press is amazing, this book came out lightning fast. So unlike my first book that took a hot second, when I first started reading in that, it was like, who wrote these poems? Because they'd been out of my sight for so long, but this came in fast and hard. This was like, they say that birth of a second baby goes faster. And, Wild House has been amazing. Mark and Ava have been amazing. Melody, the designer. So it's weird because I still remember the poems. It's not like, oh, who wrote this? It's like, I wrote this. Pulling back from this, pulling away from writing these poems, was really hard. but I was writing crap. It was crap. You know, what's her name? Jory Graham talks about having to write yourself out of the old music and into the new music.
Mhm.
I was having a really hard time with that, but I knew I had to stop because it just wasn't good anymore. So coming back into this, I mean, I'm still so in it, and I had hoped that when this came out, it would no longer be as relevant as it
Right.
is. So it kind of breaks my heart. Is that a good answer?
Yep, and it's a hard one, which is what makes it good.
Yeah.
Mazel tov on
Thank you.
this.
Thank you, David. And let me echo what you just said, Donna. When we were working to bring this out, there seemed to be some movement toward something like a ceasefire. And I thought the same thing, that I wished that when this book finally did come out, it would be a book remembering a difficult time. But the realist in me knew that that wouldn't happen, that we would still be in war, and that this war seems like an endless war. I think what you've given us with this book is a way to pause with gratitude, with anger, with outrage, and with concern and compassion toward those who find themselves on all sides of a struggle that has no winners, but only losers. And you help us realize that if there is to be a winner in this, it will be those of us who can help to shift the tide. And shifting the tide is big work. If only it were so easy that we could lift the Red Sea on either side and walk through on dry land. But as far as I know, that hasn't happened again. But we long for it to happen. And your poems give us a voice for that longing. And that longing is what reminds us of what it is to be human, to live with a desire for something we probably won't reach, but we must give our lives to the trying. So thank you, Donna. Thank you, Jared and Joshua, for beautiful reflections on these poems. Thank all of you for coming. Ava, thank you for hosting us. And most of all, now let us conclude with a huge thanks to you, Donna, for the gift of this book, for the gift of your voice, and for the gift of a future that we hope we can inhabit more gracefully together.